Thriving through war trauma. I was born in Sri Lanka during the ethnic conflict, which became a civil war in Sri Lanka. When I was 7 years old, Indian peacekeeping force came to Sri Lanka to sustain peace, but unfortunately, they committed war crimes. And because of that, I was placed in a refugee camp at the age of 7. At the age of 10, from the age of 10, there was no electricity in the north of Sri Lanka where I lived. And so many food items were banned at that time due to the war. And I lived under the bombing and shelling. At the age of 15, our village was bombed. My aunt, who got injured on that day, later died in the hospital. We left our homes on that day, passing through dead bodies. When I visited my aunt in the ICU, intensive care unit, I saw the pile of dead bodies on front of the mortuary. At the age of 15, October 30th, 1995, we left our homes and we were displaced forever. And I passed through detention camp and I stayed there until I got released. Then I moved to capital city Colombo, where there was suicide bombing. For 6 years, I studied in Russia, but then when I returned back to Sri Lanka in 2006, I lived in fear of death until I moved to Canada in 2008. But the war still continued until 2009. My whole life was under the war. And when I went to Canada, they asked why you are so happy, why you chose Canada. I said two reasons. There is no war there, there is no snakes there. And that made me joy to call home Canada. So 2019, when the Easter bombing happened, all the memories of war came alive and I sought for therapy. And I started my therapy sessions with Dr. Larry Nussbaum. And also, I got therapy sessions at YWCA Toronto Art Therapy and also at Barbara Schiffler Center Art Therapy and Clay Therapy. This was the very first art piece I did on the about our village bombing. It was made by the cloth art way. And that is the first time I expressed the village bombing through art. At the beginning, I couldn't make a sentence. It was too painful. I can only say words, and I was able to draw. So I saw 9 bombs coming from the bomber, but I couldn't make that in a sentence form. I have to draw the bomber with the bombing, and also I have to, just make words like bombs, bombing, bomber, like that. And eventually I was able to 2020 I wrote the story of our village me. When I did the clay therapy at the Gardner Museum in Toronto, I really felt the privilege I had to experience the hardest part of life and able to overcome it and move on in life. And I felt so proud of myself of being a thriver of the war. There was so much of hatred and anger towards those who have bombed us. Holocaust survivors like Dr. Edith Eger, Eva Kor, and many others who helped me to forgive. I started the journey of peace and reconciliation in Sri Lanka with the Oblates Fathers in 2017. And that was where I was able to meet Sinhalese people who were once my enemies. And that friendship with Sinhalese from the Catholic Church went into Buddhist temples too. Once I was so angry at Lord Buddha and or the monks in Sri Lanka because when I was growing up in Sri Lanka, Buddhism was an enemy for me. But I made peace and I started Vipassana meditation where I learned to forgive, especially metta meditation, and I learned to love my enemies. Because of that, I was able to have peace and reconciliation with Sri Lankan army. And it was a moment I was able to ask forgiveness from those whom we have hurt as Tamils, because seeing them in wheelchairs, suffering still because of providing safety for our country, I really felt we have created that pain and suffering for them for their service and sacrifice. And while I asked for forgiveness, a Sinhala professor also asked for forgiveness for their ignorance. So it was a journey of peace and reconciliation to fall in love with Sri Lanka again in my life. Vietnam War victim, survivor, thriver, Monk Thich Nhat Hanh was a major instrument in my life to make peace in Sri Lanka. Also, other survivors from um, other parts of the world, genocide, Bosnian, and African countries helped me to forgive because they have already done it. So it all helped me to go into this path to forgive and heal because it is a work inside me which I did to forgive and to heal, and that became a seed to forgive others. So I am grateful today to be a thriver of the Sri Lankan war, to celebrate my pain and overcoming them with loving forgiveness and making peace with myself and all the rest in the country, in the world. May peace be upon us all. May peace prevail in this world. May peace guide us all in the path of righteousness. Thank you.